you take every opportunity and you look at it with an open mind and say, okay, you know what? Let's be honest about this. I might be more successful. I'm happier doing this. I might make more money doing this. It's not what I intended. And it's going to take a little more effort, maybe. And that's the thing. People are afraid of the effort.
Welcome to the Real Estate Mogul MD podcast. Thanks for tuning in and taking control of your financial future. This is a show where we not only motivate and inspire, we give you actionable real-world experience to help you live life by design. You'll hear journeys and stories from other physicians, investors, coaches, consultants, and entrepreneurs. And now, here's your host, Brett Riggins. An amazing conversation today, just jam-packed with so much information. And today's guest lays out this wonderful circle about having an idea, an innovative idea in the world of medicine, and what it would look like to turn that into potentially a business. Is there room for it? Is there anything in the market like it? What are the steps? Who can I reach out to? Today's guest is a pediatric urologist with Georgia Urology and medical director of the Global Center of Medical Innovation. Today, she's going to bring all of the stuff that you want to know, and we're going to flirt with real estate a little bit too today. Please, everybody, welcome Dr. Emily Blum to the show. Hey, welcome to the show, Miss Emily Blum. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you doing, Brett?
I'm doing wonderful. And where are you at currently?
I'm currently down in Atlanta, Georgia. I always said I'd never wanted to live in the South, and even turned down my med school application. I got accepted to Emory. I said, I don't want to live in the South. And now here I am living in Atlanta and loving it.
Very, very interesting. This could be a whole nother show in and of itself, the whole South thing, and why not? But you are in the South. I'm actually in the Carolinas. We're not too far away from each other. And we're recording close to Christmas here in 2023. And it's cold. It's cold. Is it cold over there?
It is freezing outside. I have a husky mix, and she is absolutely loving this weather. So it's hard to get her to come inside.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for your time. I'm excited to jump right into this and start talking in what direction we don't know. We'll see where the conversation goes. I'll love it, though. Tell us a little bit about your medical background and where you started and how you ended up in the South, where you're at today.
So it's actually a funny journey, and the story of my life and the story of the people that I try to inspire or embrace the pivot in life. So starting from just being an elementary school student, I did an enrichment class, and we went to the Cold Spring Harbor laboratories in New York, and I became fascinated with emerging infectious diseases. So I went to medical school planning on doing emerging infectious diseases. Again, that was the choice between Boston University for me, and they were opening up a level 4 lab and for this biohazard level 4 lab, and Emory, so I could work with the CDC. And decided, like I said, I didn't want to live in the South. So I went to Boston. And when I was there, I had everything set up perfectly to do infectious disease work and do an MPH when I graduated. And I did my first surgical rotation. I said, crap, I'm a surgeon.
Yeah.
And so I embraced that pivot and pursued a career in urology. And I always liked the finite work and the finite surgery rather than the big, massive whack surgeries. And had an opportunity early in my career, which I was very fortunate about, to have exposure to pediatric urology. And just because some of the other residents had gone on vacation. And I did that, and everything was done with loops and really fine work. And I loved connecting with the kids. I was a patient myself as a child. And the ability to give back, be able to do that life-changing work for some of these kids and connect with both the families and the children. I saw my calling in life there. And so I pursued a career in pediatric urology. But during my training, I remember my exit interview with my program director for residency. And he said, it's really a shame. You'd be a great pediatric urologist and a great urologist in general, but I don't foresee you practicing medicine in 5 years. So he was wrong. I'm still practicing. But I always had a business mindset and always looking for next opportunities. And in the ORs, I was always questioning, how can we do this better? What can we do to make this better? Wouldn't it be great if we had a device that could do this? And as part of my fellowship, I did a fellowship at Children's National, and they had a 1-year surgical innovations fellowship as part of it. So it's a 2-year fellowship for pediatric urology. And I did 1-year fellowship in surgical innovations as part of it. And it was at that time that I met Tiffany Wilson, who is the CEO of the Global Center for Medical Innovations, and talked to her about how I can incorporate innovation, development, and startup work in my career because I loved what I was doing during fellowship. And after a while of introductions, she said, why don't you just come down and work for me? So I cold called the guys here, and they said, we've never had a part-time person, but let's try it. And 6.5 years later, here I am. I'm now the medical director of the Global Center for Medical Innovations, and I'm still practicing with Georgia Urology 2 days a week.
That is so exciting. And there's so many pieces of that that I know where this conversation is going now from that. So thank you. But Global Center of Medical Innovation. Yeah. And that's where, just to learn a little bit more, to preface kind of where we're going to go with this conversation, the listeners can find you at GCMIATL.
Yep.
.org.
Correct. Okay. GCMI Atlanta.
GCMI Atlanta, Global Center of Medical Innovation. And what I love about this is right away, I heard you say embrace the pivot, and I absolutely love that. In my path here in the last, 5 to 7 years, kind of the self-realization path as I'm getting older, getting experienced in business development, in real estate, and more personally in the interpersonal development of myself here, learning these pieces and embracing the pivot is so massive. And I say it, the listeners know so many times, like we all have our own journeys. And on these journeys, we have these very unique stack of experiences. And this embrace the pivot thing is so cool because then it's like, how are we going to take these unique set of experiences on our journey and embrace them and leverage them to not only improve our life, but think about what we're doing, Emily, with everybody else's life. And on this particular platform, the Real Estate Mogul MD, we talk a lot about real estate investing, but we also talk a lot about business. And I think it goes so well together, the business development piece. And I was thinking here lately in this past week or so, of this path of, I'm not a physician. And here I am talking with physicians all the time, but I absolutely love it because we then get to share so, sometimes drastically different perspectives, but they're all kind of like tying this knot together in the approach of business and investing. So it's so cool. And when you say embrace the pivot a little, what do you mean by that?
So it's scary. Sometimes life hands you opportunities that you don't want to go down that pathway, right? For me, it was the unknown of what does it mean to be a surgeon? I'd never considered in my life being a surgeon, but I knew that that was where my flow state was. I knew that being in the OR was a happy spot for me, and I would be able to run with it. So when I do mentoring for medical students, when I talk to companies, you have to figure out what your sweet spot is. We live such a life that is well prescribed, right? We sit down when we're kids and we're saying, I'm going to go to this college. I really wish I could get into this graduate program. I'm going to go to this medical school. I'm going to do this with my career. And it rarely ends up as we have it mapped out. And if you try to stick to that map, you're setting yourself up for disappointment rather than taking any opportunity that presents itself, even if it's not where you thought your life would go, right? Even if it's not where you thought your career would go, even if it's not what your plan for your business is. You take every opportunity and you look at it with an open mind and say, okay, you know what? Let's be honest about this. I might be more successful. I'm happier doing this. I might make more money doing this. It's not what I intended. And it's going to take a little more effort, maybe. And that's the thing. People are afraid of the effort that sometimes you end up having to put in if you do make that pivot, because it feels like you're taking a step back. But the future success and the future happiness and the future financial gain from capitalizing on that could be astronomical.
And what I love about this is I am, I guess, a new proponent of this thought that in medicine, in the practice of medicine for physicians, for so many around this platform, the mental health piece, and that accompanied by the actual patient care, I think benefits so much from this idea, this embracing the pivot, and how this relates directly to business and investing.
Mm-hmm.
Just think of how much better physicians can be in a mindset piece if they are shaping these experiences and leveraging these experiences to create these things, just like this, the Global Center of Medical Innovations, to change not only your life as a physician, but the lives of the people that you're helping. That's massive. And how much better care that creates when you leave that platform of becoming the robot doctor, clock in, clock out, doing this thing because that was what your plan said, right? Emily, this is what I have planned. This is what I'm going to do. Well, your plan doesn't align with whether it's the world's plan or God's plan, whatever you may believe, that you have to embrace those pivots in order to make that difference. But just kind of circling back around then, what is that? What do you think that looks like then if we embrace this new culture where it's all about entrepreneurship, intrapreneurship, innovation? It gives me goosebumps to say these words together. What that will do for the mental state of physicians and the quality of care. And all in the meantime, too, pushing out these conglomerates and pushing out these insurance companies that have the control.
Yeah, so this has become a real passion project of mine. And I've given a few lectures over the years. And this started actually pre-COVID in 2019 after a business trip out to Israel. And I started working with an Israeli hospital, putting together an enrichment program for their physicians. And obviously, for obvious reasons, all of that fizzled out with COVID. And so that really never took shape. But in recent years, I've started to reflect back on what that means and what that innovation culture in a hospital means, and looking at burnout in physicians, which is huge right now. And it's been huge for 10 years. So it's a problem that we haven't solved. And why haven't we solved it? Well, physicians nowadays don't feel any ownership in the care of patients. It's dictated to them by insurance companies, the hospitals that employ them, their physician contracts, whatever it might be. And so I've made it a mission of mine to try to educate the masses on what can you do to take ownership back? What can even a nurse do to take ownership back? So it becomes more of a team sport and more of less of a hierarchy, right? So both from the hospital standpoint and from the physician standpoint, looking and being observant of all of the potential problems out there that you can actually solve, right? Not just be a player on the bench and, running with the punches that hit you, but keep your eyes open. And what are their opportunities out there? Sometimes it's just a culture change. Sometimes you're not going to make any money by doing it, but teaching people and educating people on that thought process of how do you identify those problems? How do you decide if that's a problem that's worth pursuing? And then if it is a medical device, if it is a digital health technology, who do I go to talk to so that I can really decipher whether or not this is a good business opportunity to pursue? What does that look like from my standpoint if I'm an employed physician, if I'm not a solo practitioner, which is rare these days, to invest my own money? Does the IP get owned by my employer? All of these things. So putting it out there in the universe to educate people as to how they can impact more change. I met a private equity guy once who was he was a doctor who left and went into private equity. So why did you go into private equity? He goes, because I knew that being a doctor, I could help maybe 10,000, maybe 50,000 people in my career. But I knew going into private equity, I could affect hundreds of thousands of people by my business decisions, and I could impact better change. So you get to do both. There's some people that it's just ingrained in them that they want to practice medicine, that they have to practice medicine, but they feel a little held back from the volume that they can impact change. You're on the front lines. So how can we at GCMI help you implement that change that you want to see for your patients. That's what we're there for. We'll help you figure out all of those steps that you need to go to make what we call your go, no-go decision on whether or not you want to launch a company and whether or not you want to take a product through the FDA.
Very, very interesting. And it instantly goes back to the piece that so many physicians lack in the career education is the business piece.
Right.
And speaking in profit and loss, speaking in balance sheet, speaking in cash flow and projections, and how does this make sense? Does this make sense? But it's so cool to have this then in your repertoire, your tool belt here to say, I need somebody around me that's done this before and understands what it would look like doing something like this.
Right. So it's a very well scripted process at the beginning in terms of you're going to make lots of, like I said, pivots in the end. But they're what we call at GCMI the phase 0 process. Everyone, when they come across a problem that they identify, you need to figure out, is it your problem or is it a global problem, right? Is there an actual market? So you start off doing just a clinical needs assessment. Every physician out there can do their own clinical needs assessment, right? So it's looking at the literature. It's going back and saying, okay, what is the root cause of the problem? What literature is out there that addresses that problem? And what solutions have been tried? And the solutions don't have to be medical devices. They can be anything. Looking at all that and documenting it, writing it down, just like you would write it down an intro and a discussion for your papers that you're trying to publish. You're doing the same exact thing when you're putting together a clinical needs assessment. And then you're talking to people too. You're not just calling up your friends that are in your same hospital system, but you're trying to expand your network, because maybe it's just the people that you trained with that have this problem. Maybe they don't know a different way to address it. So really talking to people, doing what we call voice of the customer research. And then sometimes most physicians need some help with that market assessment piece. But the next step, and I say steps, but these are kind of circular. They're all kind of going on in parallel to each other. You're going to look at your market assessment. Who are the competitors out there that are also addressing this problem? What giants are you facing? What is the growth potential? If you really want to start investing in this idea and launch a company, what is the growth potential of the company? You know, what is a realistic market share that you're going to get? Is this a problem that I'm going to release a product out there and it's going to solve the problem, and so there's no growth potential? Well, you might have a hard time selling it that way. Mm-hmm. Then you're also going to look at IP, and we do a 30,000 foot IP landscape, because your IP landscape is going to end up dictating how you design a product or formulate a solution to your clinical needs problem and your clinical needs statement. So looking at that, just a simple Google Scholar search. You know, you don't have to pay a patent attorney up front. You can just do a Google Scholar search. Eventually, if it's something you want to pursue, you're going to end up doing that Google Scholars. You're going to pay that patent attorney, excuse me. But this is all the stuff that you can do in your basement, in your garage, and decide if you want to vet out an idea. Then you're going to look at your regulatory pathways. How long is this process really going to take? I had an idea that I really wanted to pursue all through fellowship and for a little while until I learned the process. And I realized that it was going to be a great idea. I'll throw it out there. Anyone can take it because I'm not going to run with it. But I love the idea of using some sort of aerosolized chemical and essential oils, something to affect colonization of ET tubes to prevent ventilator-associated pneumonias, right? This air is all humidified. What can we add to that humidified air to decrease the risk of ventilator-associated pneumonias? But I realized that the amount of testing that you would have to do on the lung tissue and everything else, that's going to be a 10+ year project with multiple animal studies, and not something I wanted to pursue. If anyone wants to pursue it, call me up. I've already mapped out everything. I'm happy to be an advisor for your company. But knowing your regulatory pathway, knowing what those hurdles are going to be, is going to help you map out how much money you're going to need and help you map out, is that something that I really want to pursue? It was a cool project, but it wasn't a passion project for me. And then the final step of all of that is designing your solution. So people jump towards, oh, I have this problem, I think the solution will fix it. And they don't take all those pieces into account. And then when they start going down the FDA approval process, they realize that Tiffany Wilson used to always say, you're stuffing toothpaste back in the tube. right? There are parts of that process that you've missed because you didn't do your due diligence up front. And working with the right partners, as you said, the partnership is really key. Working with the right partners and connecting with the right people so that you know that you have a trusted individual on the other side that's done this before, that can guide you through the process efficiently and effectively. That's really important. And that's what we do at GCMI.
Awesome. When you say IP, what is that an acronym for?
Intellectual property.
Intellectual property.
So how are you protecting this from a patent standpoint? From a freedom to operate. So patents and freedom to operate are two different things. You can patent a product, but no one's going to protect that for you, right? That just means that if someone else decides to develop the same product, you can go after them legally. Freedom to operate means there's no one else in that space that will prohibit you from doing what you want to do, patent or no patent.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. That's an awesome path. It is like a full circle. And the reason why I see it as a full circle, because even once you get to that point, that IP point, right, and that solution point, that's where that pivot may come up. Right. And it's like creating this almost like it was MVP. I don't know if it aligns in the medical world, minimum viable product, to where, okay, let's test this and create those points of feedback, feedback loops, and test and measure and all that. That is so amazing. These are the kind of resources that we need to create this change and just lift everybody out there. Because if we can present that ownership, opportunities for people, whether it's inside of medicine or investing outside of it, so that they can do those passion products. You think about it this way, Emily. If you are on a platform or an investing path that allowed you to take care of your lifestyle monetarily, right? Then you can invest back in your passion bucket, this love bucket that you have for these certain types of projects. Because so many times in this path, this loop, the circle you're talking about, 10 years, what am I doing during those 10 years? What I love about this kind of idea, this culture I'm building in my mind currently, is that this is what frees up the passion projects for so many people. Investing, being in the right spot with the right team, creating this path forward to be able to fund these types of things moving forward. Not only time, money, not only money, but time as well too.
If you don't want to take a project forward on your own, get involved in an angel investing group. There are tons of angel investing groups and venture capital groups that are physician led, right? You are the expert. You are better than anyone else out there to determine whether or not the device being put forward, the digital health product being put forward, is something that is going to be usable and impactful. So, you can launch your own startup. I don't encourage physicians to take their startups from start to finish on their own. I think physicians are physicians for a reason. Start your company, find the right partner, find the right CEO, someone with experience. Unless you truly want to exit medicine, you can't do both at the same time. There's a rare exception to the person that can do both at the same time. So if that's not you, if you're not the person that wants to run with it, if you don't have this great idea that you want to do a startup, at least start educating yourself as to the process of, okay, what makes a good product? What are the things I need to look at? And then find yourself an angel investing group to invest in. Find yourself a venture capital group to invest in that is looking specifically for physician investors. Physician investors are low risk investors. They're willing to take those risks. They're willing to put down $50,000, $100,000. And so there are a bunch of them around the country that are always looking, and it's fun. And that passive income is the golden goose of everyone out there, right? Everyone wants to sit on the beach drinking a Mai Tai and knowing that their real estate investments or their venture capital endeavors are making money for them. But I always tell people, be cautious of just money, right? If I walked up to you on the street and, I see the guitar in the background and I said, I want to fund your rock band, right? I'm a stupid investor, right? I can give you $100,000, but I'm not going to be able to give you any guidance. If I was a record producer and I said, I want to give you $100,000 to start your rock band and to, push everything forward, that's what I call smart money. Right. So not all investments are created equal, even if it's the same amount of money. So that's where these medically driven and these physician run venture groups and angel groups are really important because they're smart money. They can guide you along the pathway. And that's where you really want to either from a physician invest in or from an investor look for those groups that are going to be smart money.
That's awesome. And I was actually that pairs well with the question I was going to ask you. So the angel investor and the venture capitalist, VCs, the one thing you want to look for is the ability or opportunity to leverage smart money, meaning that they're going to be able to help you do what you want to do. Maybe have already done this or in the same type of field or scenario or have resources, connections that can help elevate you and leverage time for you in this process. Yeah. What is maybe one thing that you, beyond that smart money, advice that you would say watch out for when you're looking at angel investors and venture capitalists? Because let's not get too far away from the table. Like some of the venture capital business, they're in it for, to get it, right? These are very, very smart people, considered sharks maybe, and may be able to leverage certain pieces more towards their side of the table than the person with the idea. Do you have any advice in that regard?
I do. So everyone thinks that their product that they're bringing to the market, that their digital health company that they have is the next greatest thing. And, they're going to make tons of money on it. And people are going to want to license it. The people are going to and they're going to collect their royalties, and that's it. The fact of the matter is, in this day and age, if you want the biggest bang for your buck, if you want the biggest return on your investment, you need to take the process as far as you can before you start looking for dilutive funding, right? There are tons of grants, SBIRs, the Small Business Innovation and Research Grants. I think that's the right acronym. But these are run through the government, and specifically for medical grants, for medical device companies, and they're run through the NIH. They're great non-dilutive funding. There's tons of non-dilutive funding all around. And the more you can leverage what you're doing through non-dilutive funding before you're starting to go to your angel investors, before you're going to your venture capitals, you're going to give up a good portion of your company in order to invest in those, involve yourself in those organizations. The farther you are through the FDA process, the less the more efficient you are getting through that FDA process, the less of a percentage they're going to be able to leverage themselves to take. If you have a really early idea and you pitch it to one of these guys, they're going to be like, great, we're going to take 50% of your company. If you pair with someone like GCMI who can, in a low risk fashion, take you through the FDA process, I'm not going to say inexpensively, because the FDA process is not an inexpensive process, but efficiency matters. If you pair yourself with experienced partners like GCMI and can get yourself farther through the FDA approval process, maybe not through it, but have a clear path forward, have your pre-sub meeting, know what your map looks like after that pre-sub meeting, know what your quality systems has to look like, then you have more to leverage with the venture capital or an angel investor saying, you know what, maybe you can take 25% of my company. Even if you talk about mergers and acquisitions from larger companies like Boston Scientific or Cook or Medtronic, for example, they want to see you farther down that pathway. If they are going to acquire your company early, which nobody wants to do anymore. I'm going to say that again because everyone thinks I have this great idea, I'm just going to sell this idea. No one is going to buy your idea. They're going to buy your FDA approved product that's already tried and true. They might help fund you along the way, but no one's going to buy your idea. So partnering up with someone that can get you through that process faster is going to save you. It's going to cost you money on the front end, but it's going to save you money on the back end.
Very, very interesting. Nobody's going to buy your idea. Work your idea as far as possible before diluting funding in this scenario. And then when you are at that point in the process, finding smart money. Yeah. Boy, I love that circle. And that, to me, that ties very similarly to the way that we look at real estate as a business as well, too, for
Mm-hmm.
physicians who are looking to diversify, the old air quotes for the listeners out there, my fingers are flapping, to diversify into real estate. And I always consider real estate as a business,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is the best way to look at it. And the idea of passive income, there's no such thing as passive income. There are some things that are more passive than others. And then the time that's required when you put time into something, and then the residual effect from that. Like one of my favorite passive incomes is I wrote a book, and every month when the check comes in from Amazon, I love that. Like that's passive. But Emily, the amount of time that went in to write that book and the 20 years of experience prior to that, I mean, is that still considered passive? Now it is. The residual effect is. But real estate in general is this other platform. And I love the way that you put it on, doing your homework, doing your due diligence to get through. The challenge we run into is the timepiece sometimes in real estate related. Physicians just typically are not going to have that time. I guess let me stop that, because that's a limiting belief. Everybody has the same amount of time in a day. It's what we put priority and focus on is where our attention goes. So I've talked with physicians who have, gone through podcasts and platforms, learning platforms while they're in residency, and listening from one walk from one office to another, just trying to fit it in. So there's a whole different perspective to that. But with that idea, there's time to learn, there's time not to learn. Tell us a little bit about your experience in real estate.
In real estate?
Yeah.
I flirted with the idea of real estate, but my experience with real estate is limited, shy of the fact that I've rented space out to people here and there. I've always had 2 and 3 bedroom houses. I've always been interested in it, but it's always been something that's intimidated me because I haven't had the time, quote unquote, to educate myself.
Yes.
But everyone that I know in medicine, if they haven't launched a company on their own, the happiest people that I know in medicine have invested time and effort and money into real estate investment.
Yeah.
So it's definitely something that is on my radar, but not something that I've endeavored into.
Like rock music? Like rock music?
Like rock music, exactly. But now I'm at the point in my career where I'm like, okay, you know what? Maybe I'll buy another house, live in that other house, rent mine, because I know I could rent it a lot. And I've looked into the commercial real estate market as well, because again, there's no better way to make your money work for you, I think, than in real estate. And so I talk about the smart money. I talk about the angel investors. I talk about the venture capital. There are plenty of real estate investment groups that physicians can get involved in. Right. And even in that sense, I've contemplated doing that as well.
So you're flirting with real estate then. It sounds like to me, maybe almost like a house hack kind of thing where you've had a room and you've rented out to probably other physicians, those kind of things.
Yeah. Usually it's friends of friends.
Friends of friends. Great. Yeah.
Don't do that.
House hack. Don't do that. There is the advice of the day. Don't do that. But the house hack idea is a wonderful place to get started because even whether it's in med school, if you're able, there's a way, there's always a way. Med school, residency, fellowship, wherever you're at, these journeys, you're living somewhere. So the best time to get started in real estate was 20 years ago and today. So that applies no matter where we're at in our either education career or in our employment career. So just getting started is always the best thing. But real estate does perform when you're in the right deals. So you can't guess, you can't skip. Getting around, just like what you were talking about with GCMI, getting around the right group of people who've done what you want to do will elevate that, will create will give you velocity in getting where you want to go. And aligning those things with your why is really important too. So if you could find that passion project in real estate, I mean, that's awesome. And then those little pivots too, embracing the little pivots, Emily, in the way that, okay, you talked about commercial space and doing what you're doing. You're I can't see in your background. You're probably sitting in a commercial space right now, right?
I'm actually in my house, which is why
Oh,
it's
okay.
blurred out. You don't
Yeah,
want
there
to
we
see the
go.
stuff on the
You're in your
floor from
house.
the chair behind
Last
me.
time we talked, you were in a commercial
Yeah,
space.
I
But
was.
those are the things where you have the opportunities around you, and whether it's small practice or whatever kind of
Yeah,
practice, you have these opportunities. You're renting space. Whether you know it or not, you are gaining real estate knowledge every day. Every day, it's in and around you. You may have your blinders on, focused on either your passion project or your W-2 or life in the chaos of it that it is. But there's so much to learn, so much around. I love having conversations with, okay, we're thinking about it, and I hear it so much. Is like,
yeah,
I know that's the direction I want to go. It just talking about it,
yeah.
talking about it's going to be the best way.
Again, it's that concept of embrace the pivot. The pivots are scary.
Hmm.
I've been looking for around 6 to 8 months now about getting a property up in North Georgia. North Georgia is beautiful.
Hmm.
The Blue Ridge Mountains are stunning, and getting a property up there, it's an intimidating upfront purchase. And it's something I would use personally, but then the majority of the rest of the time, I would rent it out.
Hmm.
So now I have a great vacation house that's an hour or so away that is making me money,
Hmm.
right? It's those simple things. So there are two different aspects. So it's the simple aspect of just renting out the property, investing in a property. But then, especially for the younger listeners that maybe don't have the same amount of money out there that they can actually buy something to fully rent, doing what I did in residency. I had a big enough house that someone lived in my basement for over a year. She split utilities with me, so that helped me out. But here I was a resident and I had 2 dogs at the time, right?
Hmm.
Her job was to walk the dogs and to let the dogs out and to take care of the dogs when I was on vacation. That probably saved me $300 to $500 a month on top of the fact that she split my utilities, right?
Right.
So even for the younger listeners, even for the med students, for the residents, there are ways to leverage that real estate. And sometimes it's not just pure cash value, but you have to think of the return on your investment and what you're saving by having someone around.
I love it. And if I could make one suggestion for you
Yeah,
on your search in beautiful
please.
North Georgia, um, the first thing that popped in my mind is finding the resources before you find the house.
Yeah.
So finding that property manager, going through vetting property managers, who is managing Airbnbs, that's what I'm hearing, this type of investment being. What are their other properties? I've got the way we vet property managers, full questionnaire,
I love that.
and finding that resource may be the best. One, what areas do well in Airbnb, right? Let's do a market, just like in GCMI. Let's do
Yeah.
a market
Do a market
analysis
analysis.
here. 100%. Find those areas, and then inside of those areas, I will take the search for property managers, vetting those property managers. You're
Yeah.
probably going to get legs in one area versus another, and then in that piece, maybe you got 2 areas, 3 areas then to look at. Now that you've found the property that you love, then you've already got the resources in place to take care of it.
Yeah.
So fun stuff. Awesome.
Embracing good partnerships. And like I said, embracing the pivot,
Yeah.
taking any opportunity that presents itself to you and saying, okay, is this something I want to run with? Is this something that is going to bring me joy? Is this something that's
Mhm.
going to fulfill my flow state? Or is this something that's going to bring me money that I want to run with that will in turn maybe bring me joy? Embracing all of that, but knowing that you need help along the way.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's the biggest takeaway. If anyone listening to all this, don't be afraid to ask for help and ask for guidance and ask for mentorship, and don't try to do it all on your own from the first go around, because chances are there's someone that's done it before and there's someone that's done it better. So save yourself the time and the energy and the frustration by finding help.
Overnight success doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
It takes years and years and years and years, but don't let that stop you in what you're doing. Don't let it be complacent or take it easy, but things do take time. And I always ask a question at the end of a conversation is, what, if you could go back 10 or 15 years, what would you tell yourself? But I think you just told yourself something there, and you shared that with all of the listeners. I appreciate it. And I am picturing you, Emily. I'm seeing like this, the Blue Ridge Mountains are gorgeous. like this mountainous view and a hot tub at a certain time of the year, and allowing you to take that next step, with you and your thoughts and your plans and your directions with a property like that is gorgeous. And the coolest thing is, once you then leave that property, you've got somebody to manage it. You've got income coming, producing. And even if it's just maybe even paying the bills, guess what? There are pieces in Airbnbs that I hear a lot of physicians talk about. It's not monetary. There are pieces. So you've got a colleague that you could, share that privilege with, an employee that you could share that privilege with. And that doesn't mark down on the balance or the profit and loss statement, but it's more of a relationship. Is that a word? Relationship?
Yeah, sure. We're going to run with it. It's relationship building. So I literally just had dinner with one of my partners who has a gorgeous house in Blue Ridge. And he's in the situation where, because it's Christmas, he has no one to clean the house in between renters. So he can't rent it out because he's got no one to clean it. So he's like, you want to use it?
Nice.
Who wants to use it? It's that relationship building. And it is that paying it forward and showing your appreciation with what you have that other people might not, that matters too.
Tell your colleague Guesty or Turno, those two apps they're a great platform to find cleaners.
Okay.
Guesty or Turno. Yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been an absolute blast. GCMIATL.org is where the listeners can find you, Emily. We appreciate your time and your knowledge that you've been able to share. And I encourage everybody to reach out to you in this circle that you've drawn today. And in that help and reaching out for resources and leveraging what's around us in this culture, this community that we're creating, because that's how we're going to make a difference in so many people's lives, not only in the field of medicine, but the actual patients that the practitioners get to take care of as well. Again, so thank you so much for your time today, Emily.
Thank you so much, Brett. This was a lot of fun, and I'm glad that we got to share the message.
If we flirted with real estate a little bit too.
Yeah, good. Awesome. It's awesome. Yeah, I want the list of the property managers, the questionnaire.
Yeah, absolutely. I will share that with you for sure. And to the listeners out there today, thank you so much. I've enjoyed our conversation. I'm just embracing more and more that these conversations have a life of their own. And I think inside with each guest that comes on, there's so much value that gets shared with you. So thank you for your time today. Hopefully you found some value inside this conversation. And don't forget, if you get time, take some time, go to Apple or Spotify, leave a review. That helps us get out to other people and bring other guests on and share more of this experience, more knowledge, and more community. That's really important. And we thank you for your time and, more importantly, your attention today. Don't forget to go to GCMIATL.org. If you've got an idea, or if you've planted this little seed of interest in your mind of, I'm thinking of this one thing, reach out to Emily, have a conversation with her. And until next time, tune us in next time you get the chance. This is Brett with the Real Estate Mogul MD.